This is FightFans Radio.
Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Untethered MMA on FightFans Radio. It is December 27th, 2012. If you want to reach the show, you can call us at 410-988-6525, and of course you can reach the three of us on Twitter at It's Mike Fagan, at FightLinkerSubo, and at Matt Roth 512. Derek, how was your Christmas?
It wasn't too shabby. I'm looking right now at a brand new 27-inch monitor that's going to start off me building my computer next year, and it's just gorgeous. Got a new headset, or a gift card to Target that I'm talking to you on the headset. And I also got Red Dead Redemption, which was the game of the year like 2 years ago. And I wanted to briefly begin with a snippet from an article by Sean Baby over at crack.com. that he wrote about 6 things Red Dead Redemption taught him about hating women. There are parts in this game where you'll be riding by and there are little missions where they'll say, hey, come help me. But half the time, especially if it's a woman, she just pushes you off your horse and steals your goddamn horse and rides off. So this is Sean Baby, quote, "The first time a woman in Red Dead did this to me, I shot her off and started putting every bullet I owned into her face. Faces don't even have a word for what I did to her. About 20 bullets in, my girlfriend woke up from her nap and asked what the hell I was doing. I explained that I wanted everyone, even the coyotes eating this bitch's remains, to know the penalty for horse thieving. She mumbled something about crazy, but I wasn't listening. Paying attention to women was how I got into this whore corpse mutilating pickle in the first place." End quote. Great game. Having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I played it a little bit. I watched my roommates play a lot a couple years ago, and definitely was an enjoyable game. Now, Matt, you had a bit of a Jew Christmas.
I did have a Jew Christmas.
So,
is that a Jew Chris or a Chris Jew?
No, it's a Jew Christmas. So here's the thing. Like, when I lived in Jersey, Jew Christmas, like you still hang out with your family, and you go to the movies, and then afterwards you order Chinese takeout, and you sit around and watch more movies on TV. Here's the problem, though. I don't live at home anymore. I'm not in Jersey anymore, and so I spent Jew Christmas by myself in Austin. I went out to the movies, which like 2 hour and a half, 2 hour movie, and then I had no idea what the fuck else to do after that. It was honestly like, I'm wondering for real why Christmas Day Eve isn't an actual like huge drinking night for bars, because I was so bored that like if I could have just used the bar's pool table and jukebox, I would have been a bartender for free.
And what movie did you go see?
Man, I'm not happy about this. So I wanted to go see This Is 40, but I arrived too late for the showing that was happening, and then and too early for the one that was going to start 2 hours later. Obviously, because it was going to start 2 hours later. Django Unchained is like a 3 hour movie, and I'm dog sitting a 14-year-old dog that shits liquid and like super, super needy because he's 14 years old, aka 98 as a person. And Les Mis was sold out. So I went and saw that Billy Crystal movie, the one with Bette Midler.
Oh,
and it was not a good movie. It was not good. It was awful. That was actually the worst movie I've ever one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Also, just to let you know, Matt, Les Mis is longer than Django Unchained.
Okay, so
it would have been a poor decision for you.
But that's fine. I'll sit through 4 hours for Les Mis. I've been waiting for this movie for years. That's fine. I wish it was 10 hours long.
Where did that horribly offensive gay voice come from?
I have a gay brother, so my lisp and my gaydar are both on a different level than most, so I get to make fun of people, especially when they want to go see musicals in the theater.
Dude, fuck you. I saw Newsies when it was in the theater, and I
bet you love Chicago, too, you fucking queer.
Never saw it, but you know it was also a musical? Or a rock opera? Fucking Flash Gordon.
It's true.
So fuck you.
Never seen it.
Fuck you, moron.
Well, and Derek, how do you feel? I just bought 2 tickets to go see Singing in the Rain on the stage.
You know, live is one thing. Live theater is a different deal. But what, are you going to go... Did you like Mamma Mia, too?
No, I didn't see Mamma Mia. But I saw
Why not?
Newsies, but I saw Newsies, which is one of the best movies ever.
Newsies is good. Newsies is good.
These are exceptions that prove the rule, gentlemen. South Park was a musical too, and I enjoyed it, but that's about it.
Oh, faggot! You enjoyed a musical?
I didn't say faggot. I said queer, and you're definitely a queer, Mr. Rob.
Mr. Faggot. You were cool with seeing a musical in the theaters.
This is coming from the guy This is coming from the guy that was surprised that Jew Christmas in Austin, Texas wasn't as robust and easily accessible as Jew Christmas in fucking New Jersey. A subtle difference between the two lands.
So here's the crazy thing. Like, when I got to the movie theater, parking lot was packed. Like,
oh yeah. Well, the thing is too, I mean,
wall cars. I didn't know that there was that many Jews in Austin.
Well, wait. What time did you go to the movies?
Like 3:30 in the afternoon.
Well, there's got to be some Muslims too, right?
No, they're all white people.
Well, I'm just gonna say I've gone to movies on Christmas, like with my friends at night after we get done with our family stuff. So I don't think it's just Jews going to fucking movies.
It is only Jews. That's why it's Jew Christmas.
I did see Django Unchained last night, and it was awesome. I had a couple friends. One of them thought it was a little long. They both enjoyed it though. I mean, it's pretty much what you expect. It's Inglourious Bastards in America in 1860. But yeah. So
one more comment about Jew Christmas, and this is actually really important. So in Jersey, there's a whole bunch of Chinese restaurants, and they have their Jew Christmas game on lock. They know how to handle the crowds. They know how to cook the food and get you in and out like super quick. They deal with Jews all the time. We are their bread and butter. Austin, these Chinese people have no ability to actually, work a crowd. It took 50 minutes for me to get my takeout food. People were waiting for. I remember hearing somebody say that they waited 40 minutes after being seated for a waiter to show up with menus and glasses of water. So, like, I'm going to be honest. These Asian people got to step their games up.
You know, the Jews need something other than bread and butter. We're their lox and bagel or some shit like that. We're their matzo and soup.
Man, Asian people don't know nothing about.
Look, I will tell you this, my Jewish friend. I have done the Hanukkah dinner a couple of times in my life. I like the soup; it's very good. The dumplings or whatever the hell they're called, the latkes or whatever.
Matzo balls.
They're fucking awesome. But
delicious. Gefilte
fish tastes like cat food smells.
It does. I can't even defend it because it's indefensible.
As soon as like it hit my lips, I was just like, "This tastes like the shit that I feed my cat every day. Like it smells." I've never had it, but if I did, I imagine this would be that.
Well, it's like that's really sad that like Jews are eating cat food, really.
And it's like, well, I understand it if you're in the Warsaw Ghetto, but you don't have to anymore. And it reminds me of that part in The Simpsons when they're opening up the cat food and it says on the back like 80% ash.
Yeah, dude. Like honestly, I'd rather drink some crab juice.
Speaking of The Simpsons, what's the joke with the crab juice and it was some
Mountain Dew and crab juice, and he goes,
I'll take the crab juice. So we got a pretty good card, good UFC card on Saturday.
Wait, whoa, Mike, how was your Christmas?
Oh, mine was good. Both my grandmas have had health issues the past couple of years, and one way more recent than the other. But it seems news is better on that front. My only complaint was my mom and her sister are both in their 50s, I believe now, and they act like children, and they have like little passive-aggressive comments to each other, not directed at each other, but just about each other, and everyone knows what's going on, but no one says anything, and we just sort of
so it's a family dinner.
Yeah, it's a family dinner. And then, of course, at one point on my mom's side, there was discussion. There was like a semi-informed political discussion, which I immediately zoned out. But overall, very good.
How is Papa Fagan?
Papa Fagan's good.
That's good. We haven't heard from him in a while.
He was just drunk the whole time. So
he was not. My dad does not drink that often at Christmas. I'll tell you this though. I got him. So we used to get. My grandfather used to have season tickets to DePaul basketball games, and so for Christmas this year, I got him 4 tickets to DePaul, and he was going to take me, my brother, and my cousin, which is how we usually went when we were kids. And I decided that I was going to. I got a box and I got 50 envelopes. And he had to open each one to find the tickets. Of course, the joke is the tickets were not in the envelopes. And I thought this was really clever. But my dad got through 3 envelopes, and he's like, you know what? I bet the tickets aren't even in here, and they're in a separate envelope that's somewhere else. And, of course, when he finished the tickets, I'm like, oh, here's the other envelope with the real tickets in it. So he figured out my ploy pretty fucking early.
Yeah, don't fuck it. And you know what he's thinking the whole time? Don't try to fuck with the master, kid. I taught you everything. I taught you everything you know, but not everything I know.
Yeah, one year he got my cousin a driver, and he instead of wrapping it, he just put duct tape all around it, and it took my cousin almost all of Christmas to get that thing unwrapped.
That's awesome.
But yeah, UFC 155. And before we get into the actual fights, I was talking with people on Twitter. I asked people for their over/under on the buy rate, and I got some interesting responses. I got everything from as low as around 300,000 to 350 to as high as 700,000. Most people seem to be between 450 and 550, which I think is a pretty good line. But there was a lot of talk, especially from people who kind of lowballed it, about a lack of buzz for the show, that it didn't seem like, for a heavyweight title rematch, that there wasn't a lot of discussion in the media about it. But personally, I'm really excited about this show. I asked my buddy, who's sort of my casual fan friend who comes over and watches the shows with me, I asked him how excited he was. He said he was a 9 for the main event and a 5 for the rest of the show, and overall kind of met about it. But I think when we sit down and watch, he's going to be more excited. But do you guys get the same feeling? I'll start with you, Derek. Do you get the same feeling that there's no buzz? And just personally, are you excited for the show? Because I personally don't understand sentiment.
Yeah, you know me. I'm always excited for any UFC show, really. But the New Year's Eve show has kind of taken on a new meaning in the last few years. Ever since '92 was just an absolute blowout card. They try to stack it as much as they can. I think that, the hardcore fans, there's residual disappointment because Tim Bosch lost his original opponent, and there's still this clamoring to see Alistair Overeem against Junior Dos Santos, so this fight is kind of a panacea to them as opposed to what they actually want to see. But I think the other issue, and Dave Meltzer was talking about this on Twitter earlier today, is every show they talk about how there's a lack of buzz. The media coverage in the local scene. They were talking about it in Seattle during the Fox card, that just the local media wasn't covering it enough. And yet, as Meltzer points out, every time that this happens, the card normally ends up doing just fine.
I do want to interrupt you, though. He followed it up with a tweet that said, and while I generally find that to sort of be kind of hand-wringing, this show especially feels like there's not enough buzz for it.
So we'll see. So, I mean, that, and then we have the premise, and the only proof is going to come in a week or so when Dave releases whatever numbers he has and then fixes them a year later. So it's kind of a weird debate to have with Meltzer. But the bottom line is that I'd be really surprised if this card does under 500,000 buys. I think that 500,000 for any title holder that doesn't weigh 155 or less should be a normal thing. I think that they can all do it. John Jones has done it. Anderson Silva's above that plateau now. George St. Pierre destroys that, and I think that heavyweight can come along there too, now that Brock has left a higher sea level than there was before he came. But I think that, the MMA media sucks, and most media outlets that are interested in covering and growing a sport, as opposed to bitching endlessly about the lack of coverage for it, might actually seek to do something about it. It's possible to be constructive instead of just whiny in the situation.
And before I throw it to our media representative on the show, I do want to point out that Junior Dos Santos' last fight against Frank Mir did 560,000. And granted, that wasn't all
any of that. Yeah,
it was sort of an all heavyweight show, or that was kind of what it was supposed to be. And Kane was on that show with Antonio Silva. But I'll throw it to you, Matt. What's your opinion, and kind of behind the scenes in the media? What kind of perspective do you have on it?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that are going to be playing a factor. One of them is that the show is not sold out. Like, if you want to right now, you can buy tickets to the show. And like, there's not like there's a few tickets. There's a lot of tickets available. Granted, the UFC is going to probably paper the event and blah blah blah, but that's not good for their big end of year blowout. The second is that, like, did you, Mike? I know you watched the presser today. I don't know if Derek did. Like, the presser is the final push. That's like, here's why you need to watch the event. And if you watch the press conference today, Cain Velasquez is the worst, the absolute worst. And then you have, like, how many bullshit questions were being asked of the two by the MMA media there?
Yeah, I jumped in about 10 minutes late, and all I heard, the first like 5 questions were directed at Cain, and they're all basically like, "What does this win mean to you? What would a win mean to you and the Mexican people?" As if Cain's going to have some sort of insight on that.
Well, maybe we should come up with better fucking questions.
No, dude, of course there needs to be better questions, and usually the reason why these why the press conferences are bad is that we've already asked we've already asked these questions of the fighters the day before. Like, the way that the UFC schedules fight week is that you have the open workouts, and then you get like your media scrums or your one-on-ones depending on the outlet. And if you're editorial versus video, whatever you want to say. And that's when you usually ask those the questions that you want to know, which is why you always see the quotes, and the various like last minute, features and stories, that like written about, like, Mike Swick says that this is going to be like a reinvention of himself or blah, blah, blah. But like you always have that. There was no open workouts this week, and the problem with the pressers, and this is my own personal beef with them, and I can't really, I'm not in Vegas, so I don't know, I didn't watch the presser, so I mean, I'm speaking in generalized terms. The media doesn't really work with each other, so I don't know if you watched the Seattle presser where like BJ Penn and Rory McDonald are like, they're about to like stand up and start cursing at each other. And then somebody goes to Dana and says, "Hey, where are you thinking about going in 2013 internationally?" It's like, bro, fucking stop. Like, you have a reason. Like, we're about to get the good stuff. Shut the fuck up and ask this in the scrum afterwards. There's a lot of issues, and so,
Derek, what the hell are you doing?
I'm eating some pizza.
Is your pizza a piece of paper that you're just crumpling up in your hand?
I got my fridge here. I opened up a plastic bag and pulled a slice of pizza out.
Okay, so the big issue is that it's twofold. I think that there is a lack of buzz for it, and obviously that's going to change after the weigh-ins, and everybody's going to go like, "Oh my god, I can't wait." But at the other time, it's like, if you watch the presser today, there's nothing to get buzzed about when Cain Velasquez is answering questions with one word, and like the questions being asked are fucking awful.
Yeah, there's a few things here. The one question I really remember, someone asked. Well, the brown pie one was stupid too, but someone asked Cain, a lot of people said that your fight with Antonio Silva was your best fight. Do you agree? And Kane just says, no. And then there was this weird awkward pause, and the guy was finally like, oh, what do you think your best fight is? And then, of course, Kane went with, like, I don't really have one. There's not a real favorite. And and I love Cain Velasquez, but kind of having him, I think part of the problem with that was, too, for whatever reason, the UFC only had Kane and Dos Santos on the dais. Why they didn't have Lozon and Miller and Okami and Belcher and Philippou and Boach, I don't understand. Because by the end of that press conference only went 30 minutes, and at the end of it, Dana was almost begging for a question, which was very, very odd. So I don't know if the UFC thought that just having the heavyweights up there, having the big title fight was more important than they thought.
They've done it in the past. I mean, they did it with Rashad Evans and John Jones, and they did it with Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen. But
there's a big difference.
But it's John Jones and Rashad Evans. Both of Rashad Evans is like a media, he is brilliant in front of the camera, and he knows how to answer questions. And Chael Sonnen's Chael Sonnen. There's a huge drop off between those, the charisma of those four, and then Junior Dos Santos, who is he sounds incredible speaking English right now. So props to that dude, since he was he couldn't speak a word of English 2.5 years ago. And then Cain Velasquez, who may be the driest person in MMA as far as lacking charisma.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of someone who, at least at that level, who would be kind of featured on a press conference, and I'm drawing blanks at who's worse than him.
Weidman.
No. Weidman's awesome. If you know how to ask questions of Weidman, he is incredible.
If you know how to ask questions of Kane, then something good might happen. But I haven't heard him being a dick to anybody that was getting in depth. And when we watched the prime times of him, leading up to the Brock fight and leading up to the first Dos Santos fight, the family story and his father's story, all that shit was compelling. He loved his daughter. He was humble. That was the point. He wasn't walking around with his peacock feathers out like these other guys. You can sell a guy like that, and you can question him and have a good, wholesome interview and really get some heat for his opponent. It doesn't have to be bombastic. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be WWE fireworks going off and shit. But it does have to be consistent, and it does have to be presented and, not exploited, but drawn out in a better way than we're heard today.
Well, and I think that's kind of what I was getting at, is that when you kind of pack the press conference with more personalities, more names, you're not putting as much pressure on him or as much focus on him to answer questions. That was the biggest issue, was that, a third of the questions at least, or about a third of the questions are going to be asked to him with only 3 guys up there.
Right. And it would have been nice to see Alan Belcher up there, because he's good with the media and he's more than happy to talk your ear off and tell you about what he's going to do next. That's a fight I'm excited for.
I read a quote earlier, I think it was from earlier in the week, where Belcher was kind of breaking down the fight with Okami, and it was great. He talked about, how Okami's a tough guy, he's big, strong, what he likes to do. And then he also said, what though, he's entirely predictable. I kind of know what to expect from him. He's going to do the same thing almost every fight, and that bodes well for me. And that's a great quote. That's a great quote, because it builds Okami up as a guy who's a serious challenge to him, and it also kind of builds himself up. He's a tough dude, but I know how to beat him.
Yeah, but then and then you get to the other side of it, and they go ask Okami, "Hey, what do you think about Belcher saying this?" So probably just says, "He's very honored to be here. We'll see him on Saturday." There's not a lot you can do, especially with foreign fighters who are taught to be respected and honorable. And if you run your mouth, you might get hit in the back of the head with a lead pipe when you're not fucking looking. That's what Vladimir Matyushenko was saying before one of his last fights. He's like, I come from. I'm trying to remember exactly. Is he Ukrainian?
He's either Ukrainian or from Belarus or one.
Yeah, he might be Belarusian, like Arlovsky is. And he's like, look, where I come from, if you talk shit about people and you just run your mouth, they'll kill you. So we don't do that. And that was one of the best quotes I've ever read, because he meant it. They're like, so why don't you talk shit? He's like, because when you do that in my country, you die.
Before we move on, did either of you see? I think it was one of Dana's video blogs. Did you see the story that Chael told about Yushin Okami and his mom pointing a gun at him?
Wait, what?
No, but did you hear him talking shit on Margarito and calling him saying that he went through puberty again, despite the fact that Chael himself is a testosterone user?
Juan Manuel Marquez, Derek.
What did I say?
You said Margarito.
Damn it! Well, Margarito's a fucking cheater too, but we don't have any proof on Marquez.
Yeah, Matt. I think it was in one of the video blogs. It might have been before Seattle. Maybe that's why you didn't catch it. But Chael tells the story about. I guess Yushin stays at his mom's house a lot when he's in the States, and it's just this story where Yushin came back and she wasn't expecting him, and she ends up pulling a gun out on him. You should go find it because I'm not going to do it justice, but that's sort of the gist of it. Now that we got that out of the way, though, let's actually talk about these fights. The main event, I believe last time I checked, JDS was a minus 150 favorite over Cain Velasquez. Seems like a lot of people are picking Junior Dos Santos. I personally like Cain in this fight, but I'm going to start with you, Derek. What are you expecting to see on Saturday?
I'm falling back on a old rubric and a tried and true method that really did me well when I started really getting into MMA back in like 2007, 2008, but since then has abandoned me occasionally, and that is that when in doubt, go with the wrestler. We've only seen Junior put on his back once by Gonzaga, and it didn't last that long. He shot right back up. He's never really been in trouble on the ground. All the rumblings kind of confirm what I thought about the first fight last November, the first Fox card fight, or not Fox card, but first fight on Fox, and that Velasquez was injured, and that's why he went out there and tried to box with Junior instead of just going in there and trying to shoot and take him down. In the Brock fight, Cain didn't really get a vote in how it went. Brock came out like a fucking freight train after him. If you rewatch that fight, he was very aggressive. And with Antonio, the very first thing that Antonio did is threw a punch, and Cain slipped it and grabbed his leg and put him on his ass. So I think that since then, Velasquez has learned that that's his bread and butter, that if you can put him down on his back, then you can at least get a few shots in before you box. I think that'll be the game plan. And I think that was a weird night last year, and Junior has the power to make you pay for it if you fuck up for a minute, but I don't think that Cain will do it again, and I think that probably second round TKO for Velasquez. And
before I pass it back to you, Matt, according to Best Fight Odds, the best line you can get on Dos Santos right now is minus 182, which is on Pinnacle, which no one in America can get. In the U.S., you're looking at minus 185, 190, minus 200.
That's moved. There's been a lot of money on Junior then. Yeah, you can get Cain as high as plus 175 right now, and then plus 170 on 5 Dimes, which is one of the better books available to Americans. And also, a lot's made of Dos Santos' takedown defense, and it is good. But Cain's really the only guy that he's fought in the UFC anyway that has really had a dominant wrestling game. And obviously in that first fight, we never really got a chance to see it. Carwin's probably the other guy that he fought Carwin. Carwin's the other guy that people kind of point at, but Carwin never really showed any wrestling at all in his UFC. He never bothered to even attempt to shoot on Dos Santos, and with Mir, all he really did was put him up against the cage. So, yeah, you're exactly right. The Carwin doesn't utilize that very often. Yeah, so to me, this, as long as this fight doesn't end up as a repeat of the first fight, this is really the fight, to me, that tells me where Dos Santos' takedown defense is. But, Matt, your thoughts on the fight?
So I've gone back and forth on it, and I settled into I'm picking Dos Santos, and I think for the opposite reason that Subbo said, I think that he has the wrestling to stay on his feet. You could say that besides Cain, the only other person that he's fought that has wrestling is Shane Carwin, but that's completely ignoring the fact that Roy Nelson is really good in the clinch, and he can he has that awesome inside trip or outside trip takedown. Gabriel Gonzaga was able to take him down, but not able to keep him there. Shane Carwin actually tried for a takedown, but in the first round, and then got the shit kicked out of him. And then it was Dos Santos who took Carwin down. Velasquez made one takedown attempt and got knocked out. And Frank Mir, he kept trying for the takedown in various different versions of a takedown. He wasn't doing like power doubles or anything like that, but he was rolling for a leg and he was trying to grab a hold of a leg for a leg lock. And Dos Santos had the, he had the mindset to stay out of there. So what I think, yeah. Frank Mir.
Do you want to read that for the audience? What you guys are laughing at? Just so
So Sebo just said to us, Nevada State wrestling champion Frank Mir. Fuck me.
And
with
what was
knives.
the follow up?
Fuck me with knives. But what I'm saying is, I think that we're we're underselling Velasquez's boxing, but at the same time, we're also underselling Dos Santos's wrestling, and that's both offensive and defensive wrestling. I think he has the ability to keep it on the feet, and I don't think he's going to get taken down. He sure as hell isn't going to be held there for 5 rounds. I think that I'm going to pick Junior Dos Santos to win by TKO in the second round. So it's going to end in the second. I'm picking TKO for Dos Santos, and Sebo's picking TKO for Cain Velasquez.
So I want to sort of clarify. It's not that we're under, or at least me. I don't want to speak for Sebo, but it's not that I'm underselling Junior Dos Santos' takedown defense. It's good. Obviously, we've seen it in action. And even when he does get taken out, he can get back up to his feet. It's the fact that outside of Cain, he hasn't found anyone with that level of wrestling, at least in terms of MMA and in the UFC. And outside of that, fight,
and it's a tough thing to say. Like, this is the fight that'll show. It's the best fucking wrestler in the division. So
that's awesome.
that is the fucking test of all tests, I suppose. And just because you lose to Velasquez doesn't mean that you suck at wrestling,
right? And the other thing to me too is if it's one of those fights that in the first round you're probably going to be able to tell how the fight's going to go. If Cain can't get him down, assuming Cain tries to shoot and doesn't take that first round to sort of feel his way around the distance. If Cain tries and can't take down Velasquez or Dos Santos, it's not going to end well for him. I think if that happens, then Junior Dos Santos is invincible. I wouldn't say invincible. He literally, the only way to beat him would be for, like, if Overeem's the last hope for the Dos Santos haters then. And then they can stop talking about how much, I don't know if you didn't know, like, if you talk to any kickboxing guys that, love that sport and everything, they talk so much shit on Dos Santos' striking, it's not even funny. Yeah, and that's, I think that, they all think Overeem is just going to beat the shit out of him, and they all say that his boxing sucks.
Yeah, but they said the same. But they said the same thing about Overeem's kickboxing as well. Overeem, like, if you look
That's true. They were like, this guy's not Bojanski. He's just big and strong. But they're like, he's worlds better than Dos Santos. So they have no respect for Junior, and I don't understand it.
It's so sad. And I mean, honestly, here's the thing. Overeem, he's not a good kickboxer. Like, if we're looking at technical kickboxing. He's not good. He's not good. Daniel Guida is a good kickboxer. And if you're talking about hand combinations and hand strikes, you're talking about somebody like Gokhan Saki, who is awesome at throwing hooks and has incredible hand speed. Overeem has it took the last Grand Prix to actually have more than an overhand. That's really what happened. Like, if you watch every single fight leading up to the past K1 Grand Prix of Overeem's, he didn't have really simple stuff such as a straight left or a jab. He didn't have.
And one of his best strikes, and you'll back me up on this, Matt. One of his best strikes against Tyrone Spong, the one that won him the fight, was fucking illegal.
Yes,
because you're not allowed to do that.
Right. So we can talk about how Overeem's the K1 champion and the last real K1 champ, but not really.
And he got Sebi Schilt that same tournament because Ertz pulled a hell of an upset, but I still think Schilt would beat Overeem, but I'd love to see. I'd like to see. I mean, I don't know if he ever fought Gokhan Saki. Did he? I don't think he did in that tournament, right?
No.
Spong, Ertz, and then
no. He fought. So it went Spong, where in the first round Spong dominated him. It was super one-sided for Tyrone Spong.
He gassed pretty hard.
he gassed hard, but it was also because he put on a ton of weight in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do it properly. In the second round, he fought Gokhan Saki, but like Saki had a broken arm after fighting a 4-rounder against God, I just said his name, Daniel Gita. He had a broken arm entering in that fight, like, and Gokhan Saki was winning. Like Gokhan Saki with one arm was beating the absolute shit out of Alistair Overeem. It was just like Alistair landed a kick to the arm that was broken, and Gokhan couldn't lift it up, and the referee just like waved off the fight. That's what happened. Like that's not you being a good kickboxer. It's Daniel Gita being Daniel Gita.
And just between you and me, nobody else knows this. Peter Ertz is actually 74 years old.
Yeah. and then he beat Peter Ertz, who, like, Peter Ertz, incredible kickboxer, and but Peter Ertz he fought semi-shit. Like, Peter Ertz's road to that finals was just as bad. He fought semi-shilt in a 3-round decision, which, like, that was a brutal fight.
He was diving in on him. The only way he could win that fight was just to like eat one coming in and just throw like a punch as far above his head as he could without jumping.
Right, like, and so like Ertz after that 3-rounder against Semi Schilt, like, yeah, of course, Alistair Overeem's gonna win. Like, but we got to stop this whole. He's a great kickboxer. Alistair Overeem he's a better kickboxer than Kiyotaro.
I'm gonna get my pick in here. I think Kane can get him down. I think he's going to wear Dos Santos down, and I think he's going to TKO him in the 5th round.
Ooh, you think it's going to be a lengthy kind of a deal? Kane is kind of an expert. I think they called it the wear and tear at some point during one of the previous preview shows, where he'll take a guy down and he'll let him up, just give him the tools he needs to get up, and just punch him while he's doing it.
Yeah. One question I wanted to ask both of you, and I've said this on Twitter within the last week. One of the things that excites me about this second fight is that if Kane wins, we're probably going to get a third fight. And I don't know if we're going to get it right away, or if we're going to get whoever wins this fight to fight Overeem, assuming Overeem wins his fight coming up.
Put him on his head if that happens.
But how much does a third fight interest you if Kane wins? And we'll start with you, Derek.
Absolutely. MMA needs more things like this. Boxing had the 4th Pacquiao Margarito, or fucking, now you got me doing it. Like, if you hadn't called me on it, I'd have gotten it right. Pacquiao Marquez. And, now people are talking about a 5th. If Pacquiao isn't going to retire, you don't want to see him do anything else other than have a 5th fight there. Jake LaMotta was featured in Esquire's End of the Year Quotes thing. He fought Sugar Ray Robinson 6 times. MMA needs to get more okay with rematches, because as these guys come in younger, 22, 23, and they have longer and longer careers, there are going to be more opportunities to match them up down the road, and we shouldn't be reluctant to do it and, kind of repulsed by the idea just because they fought before. Guys change, things change, and fights can be different between the same 2 guys over and over again.
I mean, here's what it comes down to. Cain Velasquez is 30 years old. Junior Dos Santos is 28. Okay, like, let's say that Kane fights till 36, like they both fight till 36 years old. We're going to at least see 5 fights between them.
If they're number 1 and number 2 for the foreseeable future, and they keep beating everyone below them, then yeah, they're just going to keep bumping up against each other, and that's okay.
Like, I'm okay with that, especially if they're competitive. Like, if JDS keeps starching him in under a minute, I don't really want to see it again.
Then they'll be talking about how Velasquez needs to move to 205 because we're fucking idiots.
Right, but if it's competitive and let's say Kane takes this one and then Junior takes the rubber match, dude, why not have a best of 5? I'm totally cool with that, and it should happen because of like. Why not? They're like a 30-year-old and a 28-year-old. They should fight more than 3 times.
Yeah, and to me, it kind of goes back to why I like 5-round fights. Is that if you get these guys to fight more than once, you're telling a story. The compelling thing about Pacquiao and Marquez is the story that they've built throughout their careers. I mean, it's a fantastic story. Even just watching the pre-fight build-up. And just having, talking about the first fight, which was a draw, and then the next two fights were really close for Pacquiao, and kind of going back and forth about who should have won, how you scored the fight. Like, that's really compelling and really interesting. Hopefully to me, Kane wins, and we can get that third fight, and maybe that fourth fight and that fifth fight. And if you want to look at MMA, I should preface this. There's this thing that people don't seem to understand, and media people don't seem to understand it either. You go back to last year's fight. Kane got knocked out within a couple minutes. No one really talks about just how high variance MMA is, especially at heavyweight. Fights end at heavyweight between 70 and 80% of the time. And when you're talking about guys with that much power and the guys that can strike and can land accurately and put guys out, you're going to see stuff like that. You're going to see high-level guys get dropped and lose fights. But you go back to like Rampage and Vanderlei Silva. Rampage lost the first two fights, but they were both competitive. And I was, even going into that third fight where he was, coming in off of the Forrest loss and all the stuff with the reckless driving, it was still a good fight for Rampage because he's a good matchup for Vanderlei.
Dude, it's not even that. Think about this: when Chuck and Randy had their third fight, Randy Couture was 43 years old, I believe, and Chuck Liddell was 37. Okay, like that's their third fight, and Randy is in his close to his mid 40s, and Chuck's in his late 30s, and we're cool with having with that third fight. Why not? Again, like, you can talk about variance and like, these fights end like they're going to end 80% of the time, but it goes down to this simple math. If like Velasquez is going to fight for another 6 years, they should fight another 3 times, probably.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we all agree on that. The co-main event originally supposed to be Joe Lozon and Gray Maynard. Maynard got hurt, and Jim Miller steps in. And not that Maynard and Lozon was a bad fight, but Jim Miller makes this a more potentially entertaining fight.
It makes it more competitive because Maynard was going to kick Lozon's ass.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. Right now, this fight, Miller is a minus 200, minus 220 favorite. I tend to agree with that. I like Lozon's a really fun fighter to watch. Really, no doubt, no doubting that. But he has a tendency to. He's one of those guys that can beat a lot of the mid-level guys, and then when you get him against top 5, top 10 guys, he just doesn't have that X factor to get over the hump. Derek, how do you see it going?
Well, I think that Lozon really, he's one of those guys that isn't only better at jiu-jitsu than a lot of fighters, but will sub fighters that he's better at than jiu-jitsu. Like, he gets the submission a lot of times. He got it against Varner. He's gotten it a couple of times when, you thought it was a competitive fight, but it turns out that little bit of difference that he had in the submission game, he was able to translate into an actual finish. I don't think he has that here, and when he doesn't, he normally just gets beat up positionally. I don't know if Miller is going to come out and sub him. I wouldn't bet on a finish, but then again, after his performance against Diaz, Miller might be especially hungry, and I think that given this opportunity and the fact that he took it on the short notice, I think that he thinks he's ready to go. So I would go with Jim Miller, and I'd actually probably bet him at minus 200.
Matthew?
See, I'm not really comfortable with picking Jim Miller on this one, and I am like I know that he's probably going to win, but I think that Lozon, whenever we're supposed to count him out, and he's supposed to get steamrolled, he always somehow does well. Like, he was supposed to get steamrolled by Melvin Gillard.
That was surprising.
At UFC 136, he was supposed to get steamrolled by Jens Pulver. He was supposed to get steamrolled by Kenny Florian, and Kenny Florian in that first round, Lozon was winning. Like, he was getting elbows to the top of the head while but Lozon was winning that fight until the second round. So, like, I think Lozon, he has the ability. My problem with Joe Lozon is that I think that sometimes he doubts himself. And so Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a Jim Miller win, but I wouldn't be surprised if.
That was a really.
but let me finish. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Lozon walks away with the win.
No, I wouldn't be either.
I think that's what a minus 200 line kind of represents. It's 2 out of 3. I mean, it's like in poker. You're 2 out of 3 to win. You're not surprised if you lose, but, it normally doesn't happen.
No. I'd be kind of surprised if I lost at 2 out of 3.
Ah, shit. I'm not even surprised when I lose 4 out of 5 anymore.
I think to be a little more specific about Lozon, he's really good at beating fighters that have a flaw. Jamie Varner is a flawed fighter. Melvin Gillard, as talented as Melvin Gillard can be, is a flawed fighter. Miller doesn't really have a lot of holes. He doesn't.
He does in his boxing.
Well, so does George Soteropoulos, and Lozon couldn't exploit that one.
Yeah, and you just look at the guys that Miller's lost to in the UFC. He's lost 3 fights in the UFC, and these are the names we're talking about: Gray Maynard, Benson Henderson, and Nate Diaz.
Right.
Those are top guys. You look at the guys that Lozon's lost to: Pettis, who's arguably a top 10 guy, Soteropoulos, Sam Stout, and Kenny Ford.
When he lost to Soteropoulos was it's ridiculous to say this, but he was a top lightweight.
Well, but a lot of people were picking Lozon. I remember Smoogie, who you both know, called Soteropoulos a poor man's Joe Lozon going into that fight. I'll make fun of him for that until the day I die. That was a stupid pick, Smoog.
It's like me making fun of Snowden for, remember his article that he wrote on BE about like 3-4 years ago where he said Ben Henderson never has what it takes, will never be a top lightweight, and he has.
He wrote that the WEC was selling us bullshit by putting him in, the co-main event with these bullshit fake titles, and then he suggested that Strikeforce go to pay-per-view with Batista versus fucking Lashley as their main event.
I'll always make fun of Snowden for that, and I love Snowden, but
and that was right before suggesting John Jones. We sacrifice the corpse of Chuck Liddell at the altar of John Jones.
That would have actually been a good idea. I mean, not really for Chuck's health. But,
no.
Right.
You can do that, but you have to remain consistent and then not get pissed when they sacrifice B.J. Penn to Rory McDonald, unless you're a hypocrite like John Snowden.
Tell us what you really think about Snowden, Derek.
Yeah. I'm waiting to get a call from John Snowden right now. In the first of 2 pretty good middleweight fights, or the second of 2 middleweight fights, Tim Boetsch fighting Costa Philippou. This fight is pretty much a pick'em online, guys. It looks like,
but Philippou is the favorite.
Well, it depends what site you're looking at. 5 Dimes has it even. Bookmaker has it slightly towards Philippou. Bovada, formerly Bodog, has it even.
Jesus,
there's a couple sites. There's one site. Yeah, there's a couple sites where they have Boetsch a slight favorite. If I had to say overall, it's slightly favoring Philippou.
I might bet. I might actually. I got a little bit of money from college at the a week ago, and they were like, "Yeah, we got a state grant late. Here you go. It doesn't affect your financial aid for next semester." I might throw some of it on Boetsch tomorrow.
Yeah,
really, dude. I like Costa Philippou.
I like Costa Philippou, but I love Tim Boetsch, and I have for a while. I think 185 is his weight class. He just beat a way better fighter than Costa Philippou in his last fight. Everybody seems to just discount that like it didn't happen, and Lombard had the fucking dengue fever or some shit.
No. Whoa. If you saw, I was the one who eviscerated Hector Lombard. I said that he's not able to compete with the top of the UFC's middleweight division. I stand by that. And I actually even brought up Costa Philippou as being one of the non-top 10 guys that, in my opinion, would destroy Hector Lombard just due to footwork and takedown defense and straight punches. I think that Philippou, he has everything that you need to actually beat Tim Boetsch, and that's straight punches, footwork, and good takedown defense.
It's interesting looking at their records. After Boetsch lost to Phil Davis, he dropped down to middleweight. He won his next 4 fights. He beat Kendall Grove and Nick Ring, who are both kind of solid but not spectacular middleweights. He beat Yushin Okami in a fight that he was getting his ass kicked, and then kind of wobbled Okami and then just blasted him with some of the best punches in the clinch I've ever seen. And then he beat Hector Lombard in a fight that, you really could go either way with it. If either had made a better stand in a round, we might have had a more unanimous decision. But not a fight that Lombard looked great in, and not a great fight. But it's still a win over Hector Lombard. And you look at Costa, his first fight in the UFC, his first official fight in the UFC, he lost to Nick Catone. He beat Ore Rivera by split decision. And then he KO'd Jared Hammond before beating Court McGee and Ricky Fukuda at UFC 148.
What a fucking murderer's row!
Just looking at records, you would think that Boach should be a little heavier of a favorite here.
I mean, Mike, what does he have to do? I mean, he beat Hector Lombard. There was no question going into that decision who won that fight because Lombard almost refused to engage, largely because he couldn't. Boach is pretty, he's rangy, he's bouncy, those kicks are hard. And he's solid enough in the clinch where Lombard couldn't dive in and get him, at least due to his range controlling ability. I know Philippou is better at closing distance. I know that he's got better boxing. But Nick Catone, I remember that fight. And I remember when Philippou came in, I said, man, this guy looks pretty good. And then he lost to Nick Catone, and I said, man. So I don't know if he's going to beat him.
That was also a short notice fight. And the reason why it was a 195 catch weight is because Philippou couldn't get down to 185. It was a short notice fight, so I'm not putting a ton into that loss. It's still a loss, obviously, but I
remember the Rivera fight, very competitive fight,
very competitive. But then I mean, after that, he's absolutely just run through everybody else.
Well, McGee was a decision, right?
Yeah, but that was a one-sided decision, like a super one-sided. Like I felt bad for Court McGee.
Well, Court McGee is not very good. That's the issue.
Dude, he won the 11th season of The Ultimate Fighter, sir.
And Costa Philippou lost in the preliminary round to get in the house, which tells you a lot about how that season went.
Damn.
That's true too. That was a fucking bad season, man.
Before I ask you for your guys' picks, every time I think of Tim Boach, the only thing I can think of is his UFC debut against David Heath. And
that was
just
the best.
Ragdolling him in the cage. It is one of it is still one of my favorite things to watch as a UFC fan.
Heath didn't even know how he ended up there. He looked up at the ground and the punch coming at him. Like, how the fuck did I get here?
I wish that was in the UFC's pay-per-view opener. How they have the boom, 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 where they have various highlights throughout the years. That should be in there.
Yeah.
Fucking that's one of the most memorable moments in MMA history to me is he threw him head first into the cage.
That was a moment where nobody got mad at Joe Rogan for doing because we all did the exact same.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's one appropriate spot for Joe Rogan to go, it's that spot right there.
Yeah, just what the
There's no words that can describe how
there's
awesome.
No other response. That's the thing that Dana's talking about. And he's like, if you got a game on every other corner and a fight breaks out, everybody looks at the fight because you get that kind of shit. I mean, you see people do that when they see a really nice dunk. See it when at a one-handed catch, and you do it when you see fucking Tim Boach judo toss somebody into the cage.
Yeah,
that wasn't judo, sir. That
redneck
was
judo.
No, that wasn't even redneck judo. That was just mean.
No, when I think about mean, I think about Mike Brown shoving Uriah Faber to the ground like he was a kid in their first fight. You remember that when he's just like, "Get the fuck off of me."
Yeah, but here's the thing: this was worse because he did it to a 205-pound man, not Uriah Faber, who weighs $150 maybe on fight night.
Right, and then Bosch got, one-arm Kimura and wonder-barred by Phil Davis, one of the coolest submissions you'll ever see. And like I said, I think 185 is a really ideal weight class for him. The only guys that are going to be bigger than him there are Weidman and maybe a couple of others. I like Tim Bosch in this fight. I really do. And I think that I think that if it goes to decision, it's going to be just as convincing as the Lombard one, if not more so.
Matt?
Okay, I'm saying that it's going to be Philippou by decision,
and I'm taking Tim Boach by decision as well. And in the other middleweight fight, and one that I'm actually looking more forward to, Alan Belcher and Yushin Okami. What I really love about this fight is the clash of styles. And I'm going to make a poker analogy here. If anyone's played poker seriously, the sort of correct basic fundamental way to play is tight and aggressive. You don't play a lot of hands pre-flop. You're really aggressive post-flop though when you make a hand or when you're trying to bluff someone out of a pot. But
is that how you're supposed to play poker?
That's
one school of thought.
That's a pretty good way to make money without putting a lot of risk involved.
You and your super system.
But as the online game sort of evolved, in the mid 2000s, a sort of loose aggressive style came into play where you play a lot more hands, and you're obviously still aggressive, and part of you're actually winning more on the hands you make because you're showing up a lot of times with bluffs, and so when you do hit a hand, you make a lot of money. And this is kind of how I see this fight. Okami is sort of that tight aggressive player. Belcher's more of that loose aggressive player, and it really makes for an interesting fight because. It's one of those things where Belcher, if he gets a little out of hand and Okami can land something and catch him with something, it's going to be trouble for him. But if Okami sort of plays that really predictable style and Belcher was kind of quoted as saying this in the past week, if he plays that real predictable style, Belcher can exploit it because he knows what's coming and he's going to be able to react to it. I'm seeing here that we are having to wrap this up, dudes, because Matt has to go. So I'll get to you, Matt, first. Your thoughts on Belcher Okami.
So I think Belcher is just better everywhere. The only thing that I think Okami may have the advantage in is in the clinch. And that's, I'm not comfortable saying 100% that Okami will own the clinch. So I'm going to say Alan Belcher, he'll be able to finish Yushin Okami by TKO. And then the other one on the main card, just because I'm going to have to bounce off here in a second, is the Lieben Brunson fight. If you're not picking Chris Lieben, you're an idiot.
Quickly, while we wrap this up, because
you and me going to have a little bit more here, Derek. We're going to let.
All right. Well, fine. Okay, so let's quickly on the prelims. You've got the return.
Hey, don't talk about the prelims. Don't talk about the prelims.
Who cares about the prelims?
Fuck the prelims.
I'm bringing up three fights because there's going to be a murder because Melvin Gillard is fighting Jamie Varner. You have the return of Todd Duffy against Philip DeVries, and the headliner, quote unquote, of the prelims, Pickett versus Wineland. Actually, pretty decent scrap.
Yeah. All right, Matt, are you staying or are you going to take off here?
I'm going to take off, but I just want one other thing.
Yep.
Dude, Fighter of the Year.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
I didn't want to talk about that. So can we just talk about that before you guys go back to this, please?
Okay.
Because that's fucking insane.
There's clearly Brown.
So, yeah, all right. Well, all right. Mike Chiappetta wrote an article on MMA Fighting about the Fighter of the Year. He named Ronda Rousey, which,
You love Mike Chiappetta, by the way.
I do love Mike Chiappetta. I do. And Ronda is certainly a defensible pick. But you look at the rest of his top five. Number 2, Ben Henderson. All right. Number 3, Anderson Silva. Probably my Fighter of the Year. And then you get to number 4 and number 5. And I'll start with number 5 because it's less bizarre than number 4, I think. Number 5, Stefan Struve, who went 3-0 in 2012 with wins over Dave Herman, LeVar Johnson, and Stipe Miocic. I love Stefan Struve, not the Fighter of the Year. And then number 4, Matt fucking Brown. He went 4-0. His best wins over Mike Swick.
Who you called a journeyman inaccurately, because Mike Swick is not a fucking journeyman.
All right, well, before we get into that debate, Derek.
Damn it.
Matt Brown and Stefan Struve. What the fuck?
Nowhere on his list. Nowhere on his list. John Jones.
Nowhere on his list. John Jones. Nowhere on his list. And I've made this point on Twitter. Carlos Condit went 1-1, but had 2, in my opinion, Fight of the Year candidates, and was in 2 main events. 2 big main events in 2012.
Might as well have picked Nick Diaz as being Fight of the Year.
Well, and the funny thing, too, up top in his article, he says the debate over Fight of the Year selection usually involves not only wins and losses, but also the impact of the matches and personalities involved. Carlos Condit, to me, was in 2 of the most important fights in 2012.
Yep. Anyway, that's a crazy list. I'm going to get out of here, guys. You guys have a great night. Happy New Year. And anybody, the 5 people that are maybe listening, stay safe, don't drink and drive, and be good, guys.
Oh, and Matt,
yes.
Congratulations on show number 50.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later, Matt.
Bye, dudes.
All right. Derek, it's old school Untethered MMA right now.
I spent 50 hours of my life doing this.
Probably more than 50 hours doing this.
Give or take.
Let's hear your thoughts on Okami Belcher, and then we'll get back to this Fighter of the Year bullshit.
I love Alan Belcher very, very much, and my love for him won't allow me to say anything bad about him or to pick Yushin Okami. Okami's probably the better wrestler, and in the clinch with your back against the cage, maybe, but I think Belcher's willingness to throw knees and his really, frankly, underrated Muay Thai. Nobody talks about him when they talk about the best strikers in MMA, with the best striking adapted for MMA, but he should be in that conversation. And between his sick run of injuries, he looked like he was just going to be the fucking next James Irvin there for a little bit, just cursed. You know, every time he stubs a toe, he's out for 6 months. The eyeball falls out. And I'm so glad he's back. I think that him versus Weidman is my dream match for if Anderson retires or if he moves up to 205 or if he takes a fight with George St. Pierre and gives up the belt, whatever happens there, I think Weidman versus Belcher for the future of the division is the fight I want to see.
Yeah, and there's nothing I don't disagree with either of you on it. And, the funny thing about Belcher is that I always sort of had a negative opinion on him because of the Johnny Cash tattoo. And
I love that tattoo.
It's a terrible tattoo.
No, it's great because when he gives someone a rear naked choke, it looks like Johnny Cash is kissing him on the cheek.
Well, whenever I think of it in my head, I always picture Johnny Cash with a pig nose. That's how I think of that tattoo.
When I first saw it, it looked like a grocery bag with a face drawn. It's a terrible tattoo, but the fact that he got a Johnny Cash tattoo and it's placed like it is, so when he chokes somebody, it's just like, it's great.
But the fact that he's gotten to the point now where the way he fights and his style and all that, like the fact that he's able to overcome the tattoo, it says a lot about the man as a fighter.
Got him pretty good. He's a good interview. He's great in the post fight. He's, I love him. He's Alan Belcher. And I'm going to take Belcher. I'm going to go back to that poker analogy. When a good loose aggressive player is one-on-one with a tight aggressive player, it can be a lot of trouble. If you know how your opponent's going to play, and Belcher's he seems pretty confident he knows how Okami's going to react in this fight, that can make it real difficult for the other guy. Well, we could get into a whole MMA versus poker thing and what strategy works best at what levels and who's the Daniel Negreanu and is Anderson Silva fucking Johnny Moss. There's a lot of stuff.
Johnny Moss?
The greatest fucking poker player of all time.
Ooh, all right. I'll let you
look it up.
Say things.
Look it up.
Anyway, I'm going to take Belcher by decision here. And before we get back to that Fight of the Year stuff, although there's not too much more to talk about it, I wanted to get your guesstimate on the buy rate.
At least 500,000. 600,000 wouldn't surprise me. I think in that range. Above it would be awesome. Below it would suck.
I'm going to go. The first response I got on Twitter was for an over/under was 575. I'm gonna make that my over/under. I think it's a really good number there. And then one thing too, Roth noted that the event had it sold out earlier. I went on Ticketmaster and looked at the prices. And I think this might have a lot to do with it. The cheapest ticket to get into this fight on Ticketmaster is $138, and that's for upper bowl, back of that, the very end of the upper bowl. Stuff more near the balcony is going for $266. So it might have something to do with price here, why this fight isn't selling out. Although, obviously, if you had an Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen fight in there, maybe you can get away with those prices. Maybe Zuffa is sort of overestimating how big this fight is locally in Vegas. But let's get back to that Fight of the Year stuff. Derek, what is your fighter, or who is your fighter of the year in 2012?
God damn it.
Not knowing the results of this card.
That influences it, because if Junior wins, then Junior's probably up on that list. Because of the 151 drama, you don't even talk about John Jones, but I would have no problem with that, really, given the fact that, he beat the hell out of Rashad Evans in a way that nobody else ever has, except for Machida.
In a fight that was, a year and a half, 2 years in the making. Like, people forget that how big that fight was going into it.
Yeah, and because that was a lot of people's like last hope at light heavyweight. Like if Rashad can't beat John Jones, then what the hell prayer do we have?
I do want to interrupt you, Derek. Do you know Haralabob on Twitter?
Haralabob.
It's Vulgaris, or Haralabos Vulgaris. He's really well known for being sort of the most insane NBA bettor around. He watches almost every game. Played a lot of poker. As we were talking just now, someone asked him, who was the best poker player you've ever played against? And his answer, Phil Ivey. It's always Phil Ivey.
There's Phil Ivey. The actual name that I was looking for, Johnny Moss, was the first winner and won 3 of the first 4 World Series of Poker main events. And the very first one in 1970, they had a vote with the 8th best players, who they thought the best player was. And everybody voted themselves number 1. But when they looked at the number 2 ballots, that's when Johnny Moss won. The name I was looking for was
that's such a good poker story, I think, too.
Yes.
That everyone would vote themselves number 1.
I'm the best player here. I'm not going to fucking lose because I didn't put myself number 1 on the ballot. Anyway. But no, the name I was looking for was Stu Unger, and he died short. Yes. So that would be the legend. I know everybody, and Phil Ivey's an incredible talent, but I think that Stu Unger, as far as sheer like ability, that's who I would go with, and that's what I would look at Anderson Silva as, just the purest, like the guy who you look at and said, "Man, I wish I had his talent." Well, maybe I work harder than him. Maybe I've got different experience, but I wish I had just his talent.
Stu Unger had a lot of the Bobby Fischer quality to him, where he's just sort of a savant and had just a ton of personal issues, and sort of changed the way the game was played. But anyway, Fighter of the Year. I don't think you actually answered the question.
No. Like I thought I was thinking maybe John Jones. I don't have a problem with Benson Henderson. I'm okay with Benson Henderson. I would put him. He's 3-0, won a title, defended it again. Did it on national television the last time out. Beat the hell out of the guy. Benson Henderson. Even if I thought the second decision was iffy.
Yeah, I don't think out of Ronda, Benson, Anderson, or John Jones, I don't think you can really go wrong. There's not, in years past.
Ronda only fought twice, right?
Ronda only fought twice, but if you look at Fight of the Year, not just in terms of what they've done in the cage, and look at it more as Time's Person of the Year, kind of who was in the news, who changed the industry the most. There's a great argument that it's Ronda.
Do you know that Time named Stalin Person of the Year twice?
And Obama. And Hitler, I believe.
No, I don't think they ever named Hitler. Maybe in 1934, I think they did. But the thing is that in 2001, they didn't name Bin Laden, so fuck them forever.
I'm almost positive they named Hitler twice. 1938, 1939. Back to back.
See, nobody's ever done that. That's impressive. But when they didn't name Bin Laden, they were like, we're going to name Giuliani. It was just, fuck you.
Well, and the interesting thing about Ronda, too, is that, if you go by that sort of definition about, changing the industry and whose name was in the news the most, she's got a great chance to do it in 2013, too. Debuting in the UFC, if they can get that Cyborg fight together, if she fights more than twice, she's going to have a great chance, because in terms of in the cage, she's not going to fight anyone that could really, to me, in my eyes, challenge her until she fights Cyborg.
Well, I think quality of opponents makes a difference, too, when determining the Fighter of the Year. So, you have to beat really good people, which is why I think a lot of people are laughing at the Matt Brown thing. I think you misjudge Mike Swick historically, but if that's your best win of the year, you're not the Fighter of the Year.
Mike Swick in 2012 is a journeyman. If you want to disagree with me, that's fine. But
what is a journeyman? A journeyman is somebody who wins as much as they lose. Can't beat it against upper echelon fighters. Mike Swick was an upper echelon fighter going into the Dan Hardy fight. He went 7-1 to start his UFC career. He was in a number 1 contenders match. Journeymen don't do that.
Yeah, but you look at the names that he beat, Derek. Come on, Steve Vignon. Who the fuck is Steve Vignon?
A journeyman. Steve Vignon is a journeyman.
Joe Riggs.
A journeyman. Joe Riggs might be the journeyman.
Joe Riggs. David Loiseau.
David Loiseau is a veteran.
Josh Berkman.
The People's Champ.
Marcus Davis. Marcus Davis is probably his best win.
Well, Marcus Davis back then is a hell of a lot better than Marcus Davis a year or two ago. That's Marcus Davis in like 2006, 2007.
Okay, Marcus Davis, Jonathan Goulet, Ben Saunders, and DeMarcus Johnson. He's lost to Dan Hardy and Matt Brown.
Matt Brown was number 4, dude.
Yeah, but Matt Brown's awful.
He's not that awful. He was a gatekeeper.
Oh.
No, Matt Brown as a gatekeeper. You don't go 500 in the UFC in your career if you're awful. Awful fighters don't make it to the UFC. This gets into that whole debate about what's an awful fighter. If you're not top 20, are you awful? If you're not top 40, are you awful?
Here's Matt Brown's wins in the UFC. Matt Arroyo, Ryan Thomas, Pete Sell, James Wilkes, John Howard, Chris Cope, Stephen Thompson, Luis Ramos, and Mike Swick. Come on, bro.
Mike Swick is his best UFC win, and Mike Swick being
Seth Bashinsky.
Well, dude, Seth Bashinsky is a motherfucker.
And let's go back. Let's go back before he got into the UFC. Let's look at the fights that he lost. Pete Spratt. Okay, fair enough. Your third fight, Pete Spratt.
Prototype.
And then Mikey Gomez, Chris Liguorio, Jesse Chilton, Daniel Moraes, Chris Lytle. I mean, Lytle's obviously a guy you're going to lose to, but come on, bro. Like, Matt Brown's the epitome of, like, not good.
Of terrible?
Matt Brown is not good.
The epitome of terrible. Who's worse than Matt Brown?
Everybody.
A lot of people are worse than Matt Brown, is what I'm saying. He's probably if you took all of the 170ers in the world, Matt Brown is probably in the top 3%.
Oh, well, if you look at it like that, Derek, then no.
Well, how else do you look at it? It's like when you look at an NFL team and you're like, how the fuck is Brady Quinn starting on an NFL team? He's a fucking awful quarterback. He's probably one of the best 90 quarterbacks on the planet Earth.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that.
It's relative to the talent of
yes, but good.
It's different in the NFL because if you're either a pro or you're not. You either play in the NFL or you don't play professional football. You can be a pro fighter and be nowhere near good enough to be in the UFC.
All right, when you look at everybody in the world who plays baseball, Nephew Perez, one of the best players of all time. Nephew Perez, judged against the other players in Major League Baseball, one of the worst players of all time. So
hey.
Don't try to tell me that shit that Matt Brown's a quality fighter.
Nephew Perez pushed Walt Weiss out of the shortstop position coming up as a rookie, and he had a fantastic early couple of years. Walt Weiss is our manager now, so I really hope that works out. He was on our expansion team when we started out in '93. It
all comes full circle. All right, we gotta get going. I really have to go to the bathroom. Ross already gone. Final words heading into Saturday, UFC 155.
Watch it with people, guys. Go out to the bars, be one with them, have some beers, lose some fears, and meet some people. It's always good to be the guy at the bar that knows the most about the fights, and don't look down on them. They're probably just there to drink, didn't even know it was on. If you can get them interested, you made a fan. All right.
And hopefully the music's going to play here in a second. Enjoy the fights on Saturday, everyone, and have a happy new year. We'll see you in 2013. Later.
She's probably taking a leak, too.